It's hard to imagine now, but picture a quiet, misty British street in the early 1960s, where the day began with children stepping outside before most adults had even boiled the kettle. There was no long list of guidelines, no detailed check-ins, and hardly any of the protective habits we consider essential today. Back then, we simply followed the rules our parents and teachers laid out, rules that would leave many modern families genuinely speechless. Some involved remarkable independence. Others demanded a level of responsibility few children today are ever asked to carry. And a handful were so everyday, so normal at the time, that we barely questioned them. Yet those simple expectations shaped the rhythm of childhood. And to understand why they existed, we have to step back into that world. To understand those surprising childhood rules, we first need to step into the Britain of the early 1960s, a country still shaped by the quiet echoes of post-war rebuilding. Most families lived modestly, often in close-knit streets where neighbors knew one another by name, and community wasn't just a word, it was the fabric of daily life. Parents worked long, steady hours, and homes were organized in ways that encouraged children to be out, active, and useful. With fewer distractions and no digital noise, much of childhood unfolded outdoors, shaped by whatever the day offered. Expectations were different because life itself was different. Children were trusted to learn through experience, to be sensible, and to take responsibility long before modern parents might feel comfortable. There were fewer official guidelines, little emphasis on detailed caution, and a cultural belief that small challenges built character. While today's parenting often focuses on creating layers of protection, the 60s revolved around preparation, preparing children to stand on their own feet, solve problems, and understand the world through lived moments. And it was within this world that those unforgettable rules took root, guiding childhood in ways that now seem almost unbelievable. Rule 1. One of the strongest unwritten rules of 1960s childhood was beautifully simple. You could roam wherever your imagination carried you, as long as you were home by sunset. The day stretched out like an open invitation. You'd hear the distant chime of church bells, the cheerful jingle of the ice cream van, and the chatter of friends echoing across pavements and grassy corners of the estate. That gentle soundtrack was enough to guide you, no reminders needed. Independence wasn't a milestone back then, it was the default. Parents trusted the neighborhood, trusted their children, and trusted the quiet rhythm of the day to bring everyone back safely. Compare that to today, where digital schedules, organized activities, and constant check-ins shape the flow of family life. Modern childhood is structured almost hour by hour, but back then, time itself was the playground, and that sense of freedom defined far more than just an afternoon. Rule 2. Another unspoken rule of 1960s childhood was woven into everyday life. Every adult, whether you knew them or not, was treated with absolute respect. Neighbors sweeping their front steps, shopkeepers arranging displays, the bus conductor calling out stops. Each one held a quiet authority. You greeted them politely, used formal manners without being reminded, and followed instructions straight away. It wasn't fear or formality for its own sake. It was simply how society worked. Adults were seen as guides, and children were expected to recognize their place within that structure. This shaped behavior in ways that feel almost distant today. Modern interactions are far more relaxed. First names are freely offered, and conversations tend to feel equal across ages. But in the 60s, respect was the default setting, a small but powerful thread that tied communities together. And this expectation of politeness created a tone for childhood that influenced countless other rules still to come. Rule 3. In 1960s Britain, school life ran on routines so firm they almost felt carved into stone. The day began with orderly cues, crisp greetings, and an expectation that every child knew exactly what was required of them. Lessons had remarkably few distractions, no buzzing gadgets, no colorful posters competing for attention, just the teacher's voice, the chalkboard, and the steady rhythm of learning. Punctuality wasn't merely encouraged, it was essential. Arriving late or drifting off task simply wasn't part of the culture. You followed instructions quickly, kept your focus, and understood that the classroom belonged to the teacher. It's a striking contrast to today's more open, child-centered approach, where students are encouraged to share feelings, ask questions freely, and build confidence through conversation. Modern education places strong emphasis on emotional well-being and personalized learning. But in the 60s, discipline came first, shaping generations who understood structure long before anything else. A mindset that influenced life far beyond the classroom. Rule 4. Perhaps one of the most quietly influential rules of 1960s childhood was the expectation that you looked after your own belongings. No reminders, no gentle follow-ups, no rescue missions. Your school bag, your coat, your lunch kit, your books. They were entirely your responsibility. If you left something behind, the lesson wasn't softened or solved for you. You simply learned from the inconvenience. Parents believed that responsibility started early, and everyday items were part of that training. Today, it's a very different picture. Belongings are carefully labeled, reminders are frequent, and even digital alerts help families keep track of everything from water bottles to homework tasks. Modern life offers plenty of support. But back then, taking care of your things was seen as a small but important step toward growing up. A rule that shaped confidence quietly, one forgotten item at a time. Rule 5. In many 1960s homes, helping out wasn't a request. It was simply part of being a family. Children were expected to tidy their rooms, polish their school shoes, carry shopping bags, or lend a hand with whatever small tasks needed doing. These chores weren't seen as burdens at all. They were gentle lessons in teamwork, reminding every child that a household ran smoothly only when everyone played their part. Parents didn't offer praise for every completed task, nor did they negotiate or reward the effort. You helped because it was normal, and because you understood that everyone else was doing their share too. Today, things look noticeably different. Chores are often optional, negotiated, or tied to small incentives. Modern schedules and routines can leave little room for shared household duties. But in the 60s, these simple expectations were foundations, quiet builders of character, gratitude, and togetherness. Looking back, it is clear that these childhood rules shaped far more than just daily routines. They shaped an entire generation's character. Growing up with firm expectations, early responsibility, and a strong sense of community created children who learned resilience without ever calling it that. Independence wasn't a dramatic achievement. It grew quietly from everyday moments. And while none of these rules were perfect, together they formed a shared experience that millions carried into adulthood. Memories from that era still sit warmly in the mind. The patterned front-room carpets that felt almost ceremonial on Sundays. Long school corridors echoing with footsteps. Tin lunchboxes carefully packed each morning, and crisp uniforms that never quite softened no matter how many washes they endured. There was a simplicity to it all, a feeling that life moved at a gentler pace even when it demanded effort. Today, these rules can seem strict, even surprising, but in their time they shaped confidence, community spirit, and a quiet pride in doing things properly. And it is only when we look back that we realize how deeply those lessons settled into who we eventually became, guiding us long after childhood faded into memory.